Oh, let's try that again. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tea with Sue. Oh, my magnificent ones. Sometimes technology gets a little tricky, but I'm feeling good about my growth in that area because it doesn't freak me out quite as much as it used to. So I just figure out which buttons to push and go ahead and push them. So that's a real growth step for me. Today, I want to talk about on Tea with Sue. This is episode 39, and it's October the 1st. Wow, how did we get this far in this year so fast? So the topic today is, when is it your turn? Well, I don't know about you, but I have succumbed for most of my life to the expectations of everyone else. Who needs what? When do they need it? How fast do they need it? What's the result we're looking for if I'm working towards something, and so on. And the pressure can build and build and build and build. So when it starts with just us as a single person working, then we adapt and we're flexible and we go with the flow, and we have these ambitions to be more, do more, have more, and off we go. And then maybe we attract a spouse, and then maybe we start a family, and all of a sudden, all of this energy that was just focused primarily through our own being starts to branch out into, okay, this person needs a piece of me, and that project needs a piece of me, and my kids need a big piece of me, and my spouse, well, we need to be with each other, and the world just, oh, and what about volunteering in the community, and what about being politically active, and on and on and on it goes. And there might be times throughout all of that onslaught of expectations and the demands that come at you from every direction, once in a while you might pause and think, oh, remember those days when I was kind of carefree and nothing was expected of me? Well, when is it my turn? When do I get a turn? If I had $1 for every time I said that to myself when I was going from a young teenager all the way through to the age I am now, I would be a very wealthy woman. So, and of course, it was interesting that in behind that, well, when is it my turn? There was the seed of resentment, the seed of, everybody else gets what they want. I make sure of that, but I don't get what I want. In those days, for me, I'm not even sure I had time to boil a cup of tea. So I've had lots of opportunities to look at that. And of course, in the way that my life went, the stress for me built up so much and so much and so much. Well, it's got to go somewhere, and the body finally says enough is enough. And so for me, that whole culmination of stress resulted in a cancer experience, which I don't really recommend to anybody. And why did I let it get that far? Well, because I didn't know what I didn't know. I was doing the best I could. I was just doing the work that was in front of me, and reading all the books about how to improve my life and how to be more successful, and on and on and on and on and on. And it was too much. It was too much because I didn't factor myself into the equation. I didn't realize that if I gave pieces of myself, if I gave all the pieces of myself away to everyone else, not only was there nothing left for me, but eventually, when I crashed and burned, there was nothing left for anyone else. So this sounds like a recipe for disaster, not a recipe for success. So I've really focused in the last several years on what is it that makes me happy? What is it that brings me joy? It might be for a moment, it might be for an hour, it might be for a weekend, a 2-week vacation. So as an example, 6 years ago, I had just come back from a writer's retreat in Greece. And I'd gone to pull my Magnificent Misery manuscript together. And I really, this trip just, it felt as if it came out of the blue. A dear friend mentioned that she was going to be guiding this trip to Greece, and I'm going, oh, I want to go. And there was just this compelling need inside me to find a way to go. And you know what desire mixed with determination can do, right? It can get you places you never imagined you would be. And lo and behold, there I am, standing in the Acropolis, looking at the ruins and listening to the history and just absorbing myself in that experience. It was glorious. And now when I look at my pictures from Greece and when I connect with people that were there with me, I have this little sadness and this longing to return, because it was such, probably one of the best gifts I ever gave myself. Well, not everybody can give themselves necessarily that luxury that often, because for me it was a huge luxury. It felt like a huge luxury. And yet at the same time, it was a big necessity, because it seeded the ground really for everything else I have done since then in the past 6 years. So, and lots of people have benefited because I did that for me. I wasn't doing it for anyone else. I was doing it for me. So I want you to think about this and think, when was the last time you did something, especially for you, that brought you great joy, great peace, great happiness, great delight? What was it? For some of you, it might have been the last time you tried a new flavor of ice cream and you loved it, and you just reveled in every mouthful of that cold deliciousness. For others, it could be, well, I took time to sit on my balcony or in my backyard and just breathe in the crisp air and look at the flowers and watch the birds and the bugs and everything that was going on around me. And I just was. So I was just being in the moment. So when was the last time that you did that for yourself? Well, it's part of the rejuvenation process that's so important to us, because when we expend energy, something has to come back to fill up our cup, right? It's been said often that you cannot give from an empty cup. You can't give to yourself because there's no more, though you've hit the bottom, and you can't give to someone else when your cup is empty. It's just one more demand. And of course, as I said before, resentment can creep in, and then you put the brakes on. You literally don't want to do anything else. And maybe the resentment builds to the point where you hit anger big time and even move on, and it escalates to rage. So there was an old movie out of the, oh my goodness, 70s, 80s, somewhere in there, where the people in New York opened up their windows and they just screamed out the window, "I'm mad as hell and I can't take it anymore." Well, that's what happens when the lid blows off, right? When the pressure builds and builds and builds, and there's no safety valve in sight, and then well, if you don't explode that way, you could implode internally. And that's what happens when dis-ease moves into disease. whether it's heart problems, whether it's high blood pressure, whether it's cancer or a seemingly freak accident, and all of a sudden we're stopped in our tracks. Well, it may be when we're stopped in our tracks like that, that things are so dire that there's no chance to enjoy the moment. It's just all about recovery. It's all about, okay, somehow I need to get back to where I was before. So that's not a journey I recommend. Lots of us take it, but it's not a journey that is all that pleasurable. Now, I guess the upside of that is you learn a ton. If you're paying attention, you learn a ton about what that's all about for you. And if you're like me, you make a vow to do things differently. And I give myself a pat on the shoulder for having succeeded at doing things differently for the most part. But lately, I've noticed that my own internal pressures for what I want to achieve as far as my business, my app, my work, all of those kinds of things have been kind of building and building and building in me, to the point where that's mostly all I think about. And then, of course, I have loved ones that I think about lots, and some that are whose lives aren't going that great. Then I fret about them, and as much as I don't want to worry about them, I find myself worrying about them, and I'm going, oh. So what happens? Then there's less and less space for me to say, okay, Sue, what would make you happy right here, right now, in this moment? So I had to think about that. And last night, while the TV was on and I'm sitting there in my easy chair, I pulled out a sketch pad and I thought, well, let me see if I can draw a butterfly, because butterflies are free, right? And they just, so I love the image. And as you can see, I keep adding butterflies to my backdrop here to remind me and to remind you that freedom is not far away, that it's the determination and the desire to flap our wings and just take off, whether it's a little trip in our minds, a little meditative moment, or time in nature, whatever that is. It's a reminder to say there's more than just the immediate stresses, strains, and concerns. Did I draw a great butterfly? No, and I don't care. I drew it, and I'm going, yes, you did something that got you absorbed in the moment and made you happy. My son, who is he has some talent as a woodworker and has been learning quite a bit. He's built himself a woodworking shop in his heated garage. You have to have it heated in Alberta because you can't work in the winter otherwise. And he saw these videos about how to work with hand tools, so not power tools. I kind of like power tools, but no, he wanted to know, how do I build something with no nails, the old fashioned way, that of course takes time. So I went out one day into the garage and I'm watching him work. He was building, the first step was to build himself a workbench so he could do this work. So there he is with his hand plane, smoothing the wood, and the curls of wood, of the shavings are building up behind him and on the floor and so on. And he's working away and working away and working away. And I said, Trevor, how long is that going to take you to do that? And he said, oh, I don't know, Mom. And probably a long time. And I'm, wow. And so I was admiring his persistence at this, knowing full well that I personally wouldn't have the patience for it, but he does. And he said to me at that point, he says, well, Mom, he says, it's kind of zen doing this. And then I got it. I thought, oh, this is his happy place. This is what soothes him. This is what nurtures him. And I really honored that he was doing that. And so sometimes he'd disappear into his workshop longer than he had meant to, just because he was absorbed in the task, absorbed in the moment. Well, how often do we give ourselves that gift? So this week, what I want to encourage you to do is think about your happy place. Like, where is that you could give yourself a magnificent moment to honor yourself, to refill your cup, to drink in whatever it is around you that brings you joy, that soothes you, there's a moment of peace, whatever that is for you. And then do it. Then you know you can, because you're that magnificent. Give yourself that gift. And then as you revel in the pleasure of having done that, plan to do it often. Your family, initially they might be a little disgruntled because you're taking time away from them, but eventually they will see the rewards of that. Wow, mom or dad are in a way better mood because they took some time for themselves. They came home happy, or they came back to the living room happy, or whatever that looks like. So, and our kids will absorb that like a sponge and say, whoa, something is different. The atmosphere has changed. The energy has changed. Well, who changed it? Well, you did, because you got away from the stresses and strains, and you took time just for you. So that's the goal this week, is spend some time doing exactly what makes you happy and have fun with it. Have a great deal of fun. You can comment about what you did if you like below this video. So my magnificent friends, until next week, we'll be back with Tea with Sue. Have a glorious first week of October. And in the meantime, if you like my videos, please subscribe, please do a like. And if you want to share with others that might get some value from this, you probably have a few stressed out friends that would need to take a page from this Tea with Sue. We'll see you next week.